The title of my paper is We Are the Mimics, Clouds Are Pedagogues, Analysis of Never Let Me Go through the lens of digital humanities. So, this is an ecological seminar, and I am trying to propose something which is kind of antinomian and, if not opposite, in a binary sense, by using the biotechnologies that has changed the ecology. So I begin with the quote, "We are the mimics, clouds are pedagogues," end quote, writes Wallace Stevens. In pursuit of digital humanities, cloud computing technique of data storage on servers and modules at unknown locations made me look at Ishiguro's novel Never Let Me Go through the computer technology and computing methodology as an epistemic bond with the physical and cloud memory. So we have a physical memory that is biological, which is through the biome of ourself, and the cloud memory. Such methodology is infused with powerful and formidable research into the avenues of amnesia and hysteria, with algorithmic details and programs. And I quote, they include, for instance, parsing technique in computational linguistics, the calculus for expressive timing in music, the use of exploratory statistics in formal stylistics, visual research in art and history, and data mining in history. So, we are using humanities computing as a practice of representation. So, as we all know, that every practice of representation has a model, and in this case, Wallace Stevens calls it mimicry. It is also, as his co-author Davis puts it, a kind of reasoning with a set of ontological commitments, and its representational practice is shaped by the need of efficient computation on the one hand, and for the human communication on the other. In this regard, we enter into the domain of what we call digital humanities. Sorry. Patrick Stevenson catalogues the changes taking place in the field of humanities in his essay, Human Computing as Digital Humanities. And I quote, humanities are undergoing a set of changes which relate to research practices, funding structures, the role of creative expression, infrastructural basis, reward system, interdisciplinary sentiment, and the emergence of a deeply networked humanity in relation to both knowledge production, process, and products. An important aspect of this ongoing transformation of humanities is humanities scholars' increasing use and exploration of information technology as both as a scholastic tool and as a cultural object in need of analysis. So through this quote, what we can understand is that digital humanities is not something which we are unknown about. It is something which is using the cellular modulation of human configuration and the anatomical geometry of bio. And my paper wishes to foreground the study of postmodern condition in the fictional world created by Ishiguro by referring to the cloud computing technique of data storage on servers, which is an efficient and cost-effective technique but still possesses a threat of a security breach. Now, I have used a coinage called computational linguistics, which if anybody needs later, I can explain that later. So, computational linguistics details the algorithm of cloud computing technique of storing and securing data as an alternate to human memory, and is in parallel to what Kathy H. in the a character at Hallisum taps at. Her voice-over narration in the beginning of the film, Never Let Me Go, released in 2010, directed by Mark Romanek and screenplay by Alex Garland, gives us an ample opportunity to think of the machine gaze, something which is very important. Machine gaze, which is constrained by the data. The data is limited by the real world interfaces, and the extinguishment of such limitation points to a time in the future in which the human and the digital machine will both be simultaneously removed from the subject-object paradigm that currently exists. Considering what the digital machine perceives offers the first step in considering the point of view of digital machine if given the affordance of a human-like actant. So, the agency, human-like actant. In an attempt to do so, repositioning the digital machine from a Cartesian point of view, that is from the point of view of Descartes, Cartesian point of view, to that of new materialism, focused through Hermann and Latour, and in its non-human agential properties, is an essential component of the process. So, if we move from the text to the film is the screen adaptation of Kazugo Ishiguro's novel of the same name, shows how the voice narration in the beginning proves to be incidental to the establishment of theme of retrospection, of memory, and the threat that amnesia possesses to the ontological self. As in, I quote from the text, "That said, we are machines." It's a quote from the film, sorry. "That said, we are machines. In the end, it wears you down. I suppose that's why I do not spend most of my time looking forward, but looking back to the cottages and Hailsham and what happened there." End of the quote. The spatio-temporal location of Hailsham, the school, the orphanage, where the protagonists Kathy, Ruth, and Tommy see themselves growing, reminds us of what Thomas Rickett points out in his book, Ambient Rhetoric. That is, it uniquely utilizes Heideggerian metaphysics to display the being quality of things in the world. Rickett's work clears a path for digital machines to be comprehended currently in line with the Heideggerian concept of being readiness to hand, within quote, type of being, which is locatable in the ordinary angst, as it, within quotes, coincide with Dasein's being. And that being in the world is the angst. That is what Heidegger says, as we see in the second chapter of Heidegger's account of the uncanny in being and time. When later in the film, Kathy and Tommy had gone to the place of a madman, the art gallery owner, they see a painting of a big mansion. And Tommy tells Kathy that it is Hailsham. Hailsham, however, has been first visited by the cameras, the gaze of a camera. The panoptic gaze, which Foucault later calls the CCTVs. We are so very comfortable nowadays with them, of course, but it is kind of a digital surveillance panopticon. So only after Kathy's narration starts, and it is a rendering of her memory, but the potential question is, are they her own memories? This brings us to the next section, that how digital machine harboring agencies akin to their human creators go beyond the limitation of human wetware. Human wetware is this body. and as Judith Butler says, the picardity of the body. The body is matter, right? And no longer this digital machine goes beyond the limitation of this wetware. This body is that matter, and we go into this, that we are no longer into the phantasmagoric scientific specters. So it's no longer sci-fi. So when we talk about memories, we are no longer bound by the binary of human memory and storage memory in the linguistic of computation, where cloud storage is a part of algorithm of memory. Modern marvels, real-time marvels that is, modern marvels such as Sophia developed by Hanson Robotics, the first AI to be given citizenships, can paint and sell non-fungible tokens called NFTs for their work for substantial sums of money. The beginning of the film shows even before the camera moves into the focus on 31-year-old Kathy, there is a voiceover from her where she talks about how one of the donors that she had cared about had begged her to tell him stories about Haitian and how he wanted to make her memories her own. While attempting to read how memory plays a crucial role in the film as well as the novel, this paper uses cloud computing lingua franca as lingua veritas for my research. The metaphysics of memory is not simply the theory of remembering, but the action of storage in both episodic terminology of creating a personal past, starting with Aristotle via Locke and Hume, to a collective epistemology. The memory of the text and its retentiality as well as the referentiality in the film presents a unique challenge for the intentionality of the creator and the consumer of the text and the film, that is we, us. The fragmentation of identity is a halocentric agenda of disfigured humanism, where violence is a cognitive manifesto to defend the identity. In the Foucauldian era, the era of Foucault, of post-mortem of power psychosis, individuation is different from individuals, and identity of one is not the oneness of identity. While dealing with Cantonian infinity set and infinite seriality of mathematical numbers, we find fissures between the numbers, so much so that we cannot leave out the aporia of time, that is, an absence-presence in the story of Never Let Me Go. And Paul Ricoeur's magnum opus, Tempus Eris, Ton Erissi, can be the formative deconstructive to provide a denouement of the aporetic time. And I quote, "The basic aporia of time is drawn from the Augustinian dictum, si nemo ami quaeret, sico si quarente expellere velam nescio." That is, what then is time? If no one asks me, I know. If I want to explain it to someone who asks, I do not know. Husserl explains how every attempt to constitute temporal objectivity in the subjective consciousness can fail, and thus form an aporia, as Jaco Hintika points out in the Cambridge Companion to Husserl. In the realm of Ishiguro's novel Never Let Me Go, textuality of trauma and temporal objectivity of being's subjective consciousness inside the text, there is an aporicity of present. The retentional value of now for Ishiguro is the potential extension of now that, which is the Zetsu, term from Heidegger and Husserl. And here the existential question of now is determined by the present preoccupation of making present, as Paul Ricoeur says in Ton et Récit. Saying now, says Heidegger, is, quote, is the discursive articulation of making present, which is temporalizes itself in a unity with retentive waiting. The conversation between them further elaborate the discursive apparatus. As we base this study in the foreground to the way in which network storage space and computer resources can be instrumental in understanding the nature and structure of Hailsham, we would borrow the idea of cloud space technique from US National Institute of Standard and Technology, NIST, that tells us cloud computing is a model for enabling convenient on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resource. For example, network servers, storage application and service. These can be utilized to provision rapidly and release with minimal management effort or service provider interaction. This cloud model promotes availability and is composed of 5 essential characteristics, 3 service models and 4 deployment models. The shared pool of configurable computing resource here is the memory, and how Kathy draws on Tommy and Ruth into Hailsham that she conceived. The storage space is not on hardware but rather in a cloud and in an undisclosed location from which the stored data can be recalled at any moment. Though its location is never disclosed, but it remained a part of the virtual memory, which has no temporal location. So is it with Kathy. The cloud in her memory, within which resides Hailsham, within which are the memories of Kathy, and thus creating a metaphysical number from the mathematical one as the identity is reduced to bad infinity. Bennett, advocating her vibrant materiality and non-human agency, writes, such positioning is, to quote, preventing us from detecting, that is, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling, a fuller range of non-human powers circulating around and within the human bodies, end quote. By displacing the digital machine from a tool with the readiness to hand, quote, to a potential intelligent actant in the world, as Rickett notes, quote, dissolve the assumed separation between what is privileged human doing and what is passively material, unquote. It is here in this zone of potentiality that the prospect of a richer human digital machine symbiotic existence may take root to the benefits of the subjects. Yes, I am coming to the end. But this will take a massive change in the way in which machine gaze is understood. Depending the independent schema of cosmic number creates a loop which defines the oneness of capitalism, producing the mathematical ontology where the memory dn, hypertext n, is equal to Kathy's memory in cloud plus the memory of Kathy that is in Hailsham, and both of them can be inside the memory of Kathy, and we can formulate the algebraic equation that is d with the hypertext n is equal to a plus b phi semicolon a and b belongs to the set of z, and the phi, what is phi? That is the Penrose stairs dedicated by Roger Penrose, is root 5 minus 1 by 2, and hence consequently what we have is the post-human E infinity space of memory, and here the empty set is not empty in the post-human sense, creating a Drost effect and what we call mis or a beam. This is what Rosie Bradotti in his Post-Human tries to say, that how a subject moves out from the Varduvian frame and into the boundaries where anthropocentrism is dissolved. Coming to the last 1 minute of my paper, by attempting to think of outside the form of ingrained anthropocentricity and more complex and comprehensive understanding of the digital machine as a potential being in the world, in this ecological world, in this world, in this Gaia, where autopoiesis is happening, the geodynamism is happening, this world where looming post-human existence of future may lead to a golden era, one line, may lead to a golden era of interbeing communication and dwelling. Thank you.